Today we're going to talk about a big topic that is up for discussion this time of year is getting back to school. I feel like back to school shopping and back to school ads and back to school everything starts the minute we hit August 1st. And that's a challenging time for everyone, especially for families, but no more so than kindergarten. That's quite a big leap and a big step. And we're here today to talk about some of the challenges and some of the excitement facing you and ways to work on that together. Okay. When we talk about kindergarten readiness, there are many things that parents can do to help, much of which, families know, but if this is your first child heading to kindergarten, it's a big deal. So the big day's almost here. And is your child excited? Is your child nervous? Are you excited or nervous? And are we ready yet? I just saw something on the news last night about getting ready for kindergarten and how children today are very anxious, I guess more so than normal, about starting school and starting kindergarten. And I am sure that it's a sign of our time, but I also think it's something that we have to keep in mind as we prepare our children with all the appropriate physical things like backpacks and new school shoes and things of that order, but to be aware that there's some stress involved for them too, and it may be a little bit more than usual this year, so to be conscious of that. If you've heard this once, you've probably heard it 1,000 times, but parents truly are a child's first teachers. And when we work with families and when we work with children, it's often very evident that, they have been taught well and things that they know already and things that they're learning already. It's pretty impressive, but it is. So you really are the person who's going to start their learning process. So you can guide them from that to their first official school environment, whether they've been to preschool or not. Kindergarten has, certainly become a big deal, and it is an important first step. So the fact that you've been teaching them all along just leads right into the next level. Here we go. I just thought this was a funny picture because it's a picture on the left, obviously is a long time ago when families walking to school, and you see the same kind of version today. One of the things we talked about in starting this presentation, and it may result in a lot of questions for all of you or any of you that are watching, but please hold them till the end, and we're going to have some time together to go over any questions that you might have or any specific needs that you might have. Something that you hear often, and like I said, I saw this last night and I was kind of reflecting on it. It said, if a visiting day or an open house is available, be sure to attend and meet your child's teacher. That's probably one of the most significant things you can do, because it is a way for your child to see the building. It's a way for your child to meet their teacher so that she or he is not a stranger on the first day of school. Even if that's, in the past or is not an option for you, I think it's a great idea to just take your child to see the new school. I don't know that schools are going to be receptive to like streams of people strolling in, especially right now, but it is exciting just to at least, take a drive or a walk to the building and let your children or your child see what it looks like, where they're going to be going, where the door is. If there's a playground, that's always, exciting as well. But anything that helps to make the actual day slightly less new and unfamiliar, and it also adds a lot to the excitement of your anticipation. I think as parents and adults, we can influence how our children respond to certain events just by our level of excitement. There's a difference between, talking about how much fun kindergarten is and how you're excited for them and what it's going to be like, and a reaction like, school, I hated school. I never wanted to go to school. Oh, you got to start school next month. How you project your feelings about school and about learning and about new experiences like kindergarten will have a whole lot to do with how your children feel. That's profoundly important. This is actually extremely important, especially, with people being very conservative right now. If your child has allergies, that's a very specific thing. In my experience, usually as you start the process of all the paperwork that you need at the beginning, that's something that needs to be communicated to them, particularly if they need like an EpiPen to be at school or anything like that. You may have to complete any kind of like documentation, whether it's a note from the doctor or if they have any special needs that need to be addressed. If a child has an IEP or any kind of official documentation with kindergarten, they have, or they should have that information already and made a decision about your child's classroom placement with regard to that. But if there's any other kind of, less documented special need, you want to let them know in advance, because that's not something you want to find out when an emergency happens. Like if a child needs a medication or permission to give them, Tylenol, you want to do this before school starts to avoid an emergency, because that would be kind of a disaster of the worst kind, and also very negative, This is something that, as parents, we've all talked about starting a school routine early. Except that's the reason it's something we're familiar with is because it's very, very important. And, we are all with our children. If we have children at home, we know we get into a summer kind of mood and we, stay up a little later, watch TV a little later. And that's a hard jolt to go from that right to school routines. So start it early. Don't wait for the night before the first day to start a new routine. You can do that as much as a couple of weeks ahead of time. The reality is, whether we like to admit it or not, or whether we like to face it or not, children thrive on routine. This is not punishment. This is not, a negative. It's actually something really important for them. You can also make it special by doing something special for bedtime. For example, you have a special bedtime story. This time of year, there's all kinds of books in the library about, my first day of kindergarten. And that helps to create a familiarity and build some type of enthusiasm and excitement for the big day. And if it's something you just do at bedtime, then it becomes like an exciting thing to see for the child, like what's going to happen next, or what are we going to read tonight? One thing that's really important, and if we all experience it ourselves, we understand this. Screens are really bad for falling asleep. When you have video games, computers, or television, and then you immediately try to go to bed, it can be a struggle. I have used the Kindle a lot of times, and I know reading is a very soothing pre-bedtime routine, and it can be, but I've discovered that if I'm reading my Kindle, it has the same effect on my eyes and my sensory system as a screen does, because it is a screen, even though it's a book screen. And I've learned to make adjustments with that, because that's very important. So that's something to be aware of. And inevitably, that's something children are going to indulge in a little bit more over the summertime. So we want to start slowing that down, winding down the routine, creating new routines to get them in the groove. Okay. This is actually kind of a funny thing, because it's been a while, my son's an adult, but I remember that paperwork, when they first came home, you were just inundated with things to sign, things to turn back in, things to keep at home, calendars, reminders, class lists, teacher information, supply information. And I don't think it's changed. If anything, I think it's more, there's more of it. But I will tell you that one thing you can do to get a heads up on all of that stuff, parent homework, kind of like pre-homework for school, is to get some of those things together beforehand that you need, and really, really be proactive about when they go to school, like whether or not the school gives you a name tag, make one, including your child's name, address, and phone number, where a parent can be reached. That's very important, and it can be very scary to a child to be able to not retrieve that information, even if they may know it. But when the first day of school, backpacks, lunch boxes, label your child. If you want to have a name tag, a lot of schools, I know, especially if a child's taking a bus, they will have like a specific coded name tag that will say which bus line the child needs to get into, because that's a very scary new feature for children that they're not used to. And as long as you kind of have that on their person, they're safe. Many schools will provide that to you. So if you have that and they get there and they come home with a name tag, treat it respectfully, because it's going to be something they're going to rely on for several weeks into the new year. But for yourselves, just make sure whatever they take to school has their name on it, because honestly, there's, by the end of the school year, there's a lost and found that could like clothe a small village at the school, in the school lost and found room or table. And I think somewhere there's children going home without that coat or that backpack or that lunchbox. And surely some parent, notices, but it would make it so much easier if things were labeled. So enough said on that. This is truly, I think, one of the most important things that parents can do, because it, once again, they will take their cue from you, and you're their first teacher. So how you've responded, or how you talked about, reading and learning and school up till now has a lot to do with how they're going to treat school and reading and all those sort of things. But, kindergarten is an exciting thing. And if you treat it like it's an exciting thing, they will be excited. But it's a lot to do with your persona when you're not in front of them. There's an expression I love called, children listen to some of what you say and all of what you do. And if they see you dragging around and complaining and carrying on about it, that will say a lot to them. So you want to present a very happy and excited persona to them. Kindergarten is exciting. Like, I don't know anybody that wouldn't love a chance to spend a day in kindergarten. And while, in our culture today, it's a lot more official than it was back in the day when I went, but it's still, was one of my favorite years of school that I can remember. And it's been a while, obviously, but they'll do what you do. I think one of my favorite, is share your own kindergarten stories with your children, if you can remember them. And of course, only positive ones. You're not going to talk about something terrible, but you know what? Some kids, if they're going to ride a school bus, that is the absolute most profoundly exciting thing of their whole entire life. Like, they will wait forever to be on that school bus, and they can't wait. So you could talk about that if that's an exciting thing for them. You can talk about, who they're going to meet. You could talk about, friends that they might have had. I mean, it's kind of a funny, my very best friend I have, many, many, many years later, we met, right after kindergarten. And when I talk about our school experiences, even our children love to hear that. And they're grown, things we did, what we liked, teachers we had, our remembrances of our teachers. So when you share your early education stories with your children, they love that. And they never know, you never know who's their person going to be. Who is it that they are going to talk about in their life, and who's going to be a special part of their life that they met at these early years. So those memories they will take their cue from you. This is actually a really, really special thing to do if you have any time in the next couple of weeks. And also, if it's an option, you may not know, who will be in your children's class. But what's very nice about preschool and the programs that children may have participated in, I know when I go to the pre-K counts classrooms, I'll talk to the teachers about, who's moving on to kindergarten, and they often know who, in addition to who's moving on to kindergarten, who's moving on to the same kindergarten. Sometimes that's not always the case based on a child's, where they live. But a lot of times, if the children are local, there'll be a number of children who will go from their preschool program to their kindergarten program. And that is just like the coolest thing in the world when they see friends that they remember from before. But if you come across a child, a family that will be in your child's class, arrange for a play date ahead of time. And this way, when they start kindergarten, they will actually have a familiar, it's more of like a familiar face as well as a new friend, because obviously once kindergarten starts, the whole thing opens up. But there's something for all of us about going somewhere new and seeing a face that we've seen before that makes everyone feel very happy. This is what another area that we talk about, one of the harder things in life is when our children lose friends for one reason or another. Preschool teachers are a really special bunch, and children have a wonderful opportunity to bond with them. And it can be a little scary for them to move on from them. I've been to programs that will do a kindergarten or a preschool graduation, and it's so lovely. And you could see the attachment the children have to their teachers and to their friends. And then you also will have teachers and friends that will move on for their own lives, people that move, children can, we live in a pretty clever world of Zoom and of FaceTime, and old fashioned sending cards or notes are delightful too, where children can connect with the people that they've left behind one way or the other. It's always okay to feel sad. It's always okay to miss those special friends and teachers that we had in earlier grades. I get around, so I see the relationships that the teachers have with the children. And while I'm sure there's plenty of children that we will, that move on uneventfully, there's going to be some children that really have a special place in those teachers' hearts. And I think they would, be delighted to meet up with them once in a while, whether it's a couple friends on the playground or a FaceTime visit to say hello to their teacher or their students. They would kind of enjoy that. But if there are old friends that they won't be seeing in kindergarten, try to get together, make it a little special occasion for them. It could be part of your kindergarten readiness or your kindergarten prep, where you enjoy time with the children that you had or the friends that you had. It helps build a sense of security. And you say to your children too, these children were strangers at one time too. You didn't always know this friend, that you're such a good friend now. And you're going to do the same thing in kindergarten. You're going to make new friends, and they'll be your special friends later down the road too. Does anyone know if we're getting any questions? I'm just curious. Usually we do these things in person, you can kind of see, but I want to make sure that if there's any questions, I get the chance to look at them before we answer. This is kind of a funny, obvious statement, and encourage your child's independence. Our children are often so much, what's the word I'm looking for? So much more capable of things that we don't even realize. I know as a parent myself, when my son was little, his teacher would talk about things he could do. And I'd be like, really? He doesn't do that stuff at home. And I'm thinking, yeah, of course he doesn't, because I do it for him. So we're all guilty of that. We all, in our efforts to be so accommodating and so helpful, we will do things for them, but they're remarkably capable. And if you were a fly on the wall in your child's preschool classroom or daycare setting, you would see exactly what I'm talking about. So, as you should be doing developmentally, encourage their independence. Show them, obviously you want to have their teeth brushed properly so their teeth are clean, but, let them have a turn. Let them try to do it. Maybe, you start it and they finish it. So, that they start it and you finish that, they've gotten all the important spaces there. But I think that this is a good time to practice those skills of independence so that they can be part of that process. Shoe tying is a eternal struggle, because I feel like so many of the shoes the kids wear, I don't know what it is, but they're these like long, slippery shoelaces that are forever. I mean, they walk in the room and their shoelaces are undone. So I know a lot. I was actually in preschool many years ago, who the policy was actually, if the child could not tie their shoelaces, they had to wear Velcro fasteners, because the teacher could spend all day tying the shoelaces. So, a lot of parents, including myself, back when I was in this situation, I found the process of tying shoes easier for me to do it, because it would take him forever when he was learning. And I was like, we got to get out the door. We're in a rush. Let's get the shoelaces tied. And that's okay. And we all understand that we have to get somewhere when we have to get somewhere. But the process of tying the shoes, first of all, they are so incredibly thrilled when they can do it themselves. But it's very important that they learn. I'm just looking at that little girl with those pink high tops on. And look how long those shoelaces are. Here we go again. It's the same thing. They're usually long and they're hard to stay, even the double knot. And there's all kinds of really cool systems that we can show our children with, like making the loops and twisting the loops and bunny ears and all these good things. Many of your children already know this, which is wonderful. But it's also important for you to sort of remind them and reiterate that at home, so that they get in the habit of practicing their shoelaces. It's also very likely in summertime with sandals and pool shoes and things like that, that they may have gotten out of the habit of tying their shoes. So let's kind of make that a goal if it hasn't been something you've already accomplished. Cleaning up after themselves. How about that? You know, it is another thing that at this stage, children find all kinds of helpful things really fun. I've been in classrooms where they have like a little broom and dustpan kind of thing, and the children will fight over who gets to do that because they find that to be so enjoyable. I chuckle to myself. I think, yeah, let's fast forward 10 years and see if they're that enthused about using a dustpan and brush when they're 15. But you know what? Take it while you have it, because they really do enjoy it, and the accomplishment that they will get out of accomplishing that, the sense of feeling of accomplishment and being a big kid is really great. And obviously that's going to be something you're going to reinforce with positive comments and acknowledgement and appreciation for their efforts. Putting on socks is no small thing. I'm telling you, I don't know if it's how socks are made or how it's done, but children really need help learning to do that, because they will pull and get so far and not get the whole rest of it. And once again, getting to the preschools that many of you are part of, I've had the pleasure of seeing how remarkable the teachers are and how much help they give the children, not only to complete the task, but to help them complete the task. So it's not like the teacher just, comes over, the child comes over the teacher and asks them to do it for them. What I've watched and what I've loved to see is when I see teachers showing them while they help them how to do it. The coolest thing I've ever seen in my life was when I would go to preschools and see that little flippy coat on the ground thing. First time, like, what are they doing? Like, I didn't realize that was part of the process, but that's an incredible little skill to have for children to put their coats on the right way because of that very simple little directive. And the teachers have all kinds of things like that with socks and shoes too, which goes on the right foot, which goes on the left foot. And, let them show you what they know. Let's reinforce what they know, because they are so proud when they can accomplish something. I don't know, baking, flour, mess, that might be something that, we steer away from. But I often joke with the same friend that I told you about from many years ago that, we loved our easy bake ovens. And that was like the highlight of our culinary skills at the age of 5 or 6. To this day, we joke about it. We survived eating cakes made with a light bulb, like cooked with a light bulb, because that's essentially what it was. But it had the same, you had to mix up your batter and put the mix in there and wait for it to get cooked and all that good stuff. So there's something about creating your own product, I think, that's just too exciting for children. And to have them be part of a celebration or a parent's birthday or a sibling's birthday by being part of the cake making process is just about as good as it gets. So let them share that enjoyment. You might turn that into a little special, pre-kindergarten thing where they make something, a treat that they'll have when they come home from kindergarten, whether it's cupcakes or brownies or something like that. That could be a special, nice tradition that you establish with them for going back to school. I know when my son was little, we had like special summertime things that we would sort of check off, like that we wanted to do over the summer. And then we got to this stage and we wanted to make sure that we continue to check them off. And that's great. It makes summer special and it makes back to school special. Now, as we know, kindergarten and school in general is a big step, and they are going to learn so many things. I mean, if you've ever questioned your child's capacity to learn, you just have to see what they're going to come up with when they get to school. And it's remarkable, including the little coat flippy thing on that I still can't get over how cool that is. But when they learn those, as educators, and I'm sure teachers could attest to this, we all recognize and respond to the children who you can see someone's helping them at home too, and kind of working together with them. It doesn't have to turn everything into like a project. You don't have to make it a battle. But if they're learning how to write their name, help them do it at home. If they're learning like their colors, let them do it at home. If they're learning how to count or utilize, different kinds of materials, let them try it at home. Here's a couple of things that you can kind of practice with them. Identify some letters if that's part of what they're working on. how to grip a pencil, crayon, or marker correctly. That's huge, because if they don't get that now, it's very likely that they won't. Like, that grip is started early, solidified early, and it's important. Write their first name using upper and lowercase letters. Up to now, they may not have done that. They may have just written all uppercase letters. So have them practice it, upper and lowercase and lowercase, counting to 10, bouncing a ball, no small thing. Use scissors, glue, paint, and other materials, because that's all part of what they're going to have in school. And they're going to have a lot of fun with that. And those are great parent-child activities to work on at home anyway, because it makes it a pleasure. And managing bathroom needs is also very important, because in preschools, there is one procedure, whether it's many of them seem to have bathrooms in the classroom, whether they have that in kindergarten, I don't know all the time. I think it depends on the building, but you want to work on, proper bathroom kind of etiquette, washing their hands, how to do that properly. In this culture, we've become hand washing fools. So that's really important. This kind of sounds silly. Speak using complete sentences. No small thing, because children really get in the habit of talking a certain way at home and at school. And at school, they're expected to do one thing, and we might kind of allow another. So it's okay. Let them try to talk like big kids. Recognize common sight words like stop. That's something that children almost always get very early, because of the whole stop sign thing, they like that. And you'll drive your child around the neighborhood and they'll talk about what a red light means, what a yellow light means, what a green light means, what a stop sign is. That's the environmental print. Let them see it, identify rhyming words. That's something you can just do as a silly aside. I mean, many of the kids shows will talk about those kinds of things. And, we do it. I mean, it's something you kind of are aware of yourself when you make a word that rhymes, whether it's on purpose or accidentally. And you can say, how about that? That word rhymes. And as soon as you start that, they will then come up with, a million more rhyming words, which is a very fun thing to see. Very important. Repeat their full name, address, phone number, and birthday. The name, address, and phone number is so, so important. As we said, that's why in the beginning of the school year, most kindergartens will have a tag around the child's neck with that information on there, because while they might know it, and you may reinforce it at home, in a moment where they're nervous or excited, they may forget. So you want to make sure they have that. Getting dressed, I often kind of joke where you can tell the kids that have had very good service at home when they put their hands up for a shirt instead of trying it themselves. Once again, those things take a lot more time with your child than they do if you did it for them. But the sense of accomplishment they will get from doing something themselves is wonderful. But it's also an important thing for them to learn to do in the world, because in a school environment, there's going to be many more people for a teacher to attend to than they might have been in a preschool setting or a daycare setting. So that's very important for them to be able to do. Following directions, the eternal, once again, that's oftentimes something that is like, whether it's a preferred or non-preferred activity, the responsiveness for a child, how it's presented to them. But, obviously, as you are their first teachers, their teachers are also their teachers. And if they should be listening to you as their parents, they should listen to the teacher as well. And it isn't something that is negotiable, I have a nephew who was very indulged when he was going to kindergarten. They would have snack time at a certain time. They would have, very obviously procedures at different times. And I remember her telling me, kind of with an attitude that, that he wasn't hungry when it was time for snack. Whatever special thing she sent in for him wasn't something that he wanted to eat at, 10 o'clock, whenever they were going to have it. I'm thinking, well, you know what? This isn't an atmosphere where you can have grazing. They can't just, let all the other kids eat when it's the right time, and then he shows up to eat whenever he feels like it. He's going to have to do it when it's time, or he's not going to get to have a snack. But, those kind of procedures, like following directions and doing it when you're supposed to do it, for some kids may truly be novel experience, and they have to learn to do that. So get in the habit of reminding them that it's important for them to follow directions. One little tip I will say as an adult in education, as well as a parent, whether you think a rule that the school has or the teacher has is not necessary or silly or inappropriate or whatever you think, keep those thoughts under your hat, because I've worked with children and said, my parents say this is ridiculous and that I shouldn't have to do XYZ, and why does it have to be done this way? And I hear that and I think, great, now you're going to have to try to undo that mentality. When the reality is, with your child, you have maybe one or two or three, or, how many children to take care of and to get things accomplished. A teacher has a whole room full of children. And if she has a procedure or a rule or a policy that's part of what keeps that situation running smoothly, then whether you can do an inward eye roll, but you have to support that. That's probably, in this climate, I will tell you, when I hear from teachers, that's probably the single most important thing you can do, is to support the teacher. If you have a real legitimate concern, address it adult to adult and not with a child in earshot, because they hear that kind of stuff. And I've heard them tell other children, my mommy thinks, we shouldn't have to do blah, blah, blah. And then the other child hears it. Then the other child's talking about it with their parent. It's I think in days past, that was something a little more respected. And I think teachers have gotten to the firing squad in a lot of ways. And if we've ever wanted to treat them well, it's now, because they're dealing with a million things in a climate that's very difficult, and at a time when we don't have enough of them. So let's be kind, and let's be kind with regard to your teachers in front of your children. I can't emphasize that enough. Okay, off my soapbox. Cleaning up after themselves. Another important thing, because once again, you may be able to clean up with them very easily at home, and it's like easier for you to do it than let them do it because they're messy and they're not, as good as you are or whatever. But if you think about, that's something you're doing for a child or a few children. A teacher has a classroom to do that with, and they will be expected to clean up after themselves. That's part of the process, whether they have rules for it. They usually have a little song, a cleanup song. They'll have certain procedures at certain centers that they have to follow about how do you clean it up, where do you put the markers, where do you put your work to dry if it's an art project, where do you put the materials back. That's a huge learning process. And if you can get them in the habit of doing that at home, you will have started a wonderful habit for your child, because they will not find that disturbing. Listening to a story without interrupting. Now, I love to go to classrooms when I see circle time and story time, because the kids' enthusiasm over a book just makes my heart so happy. I'm a rabid reader and always was. And thankfully my son is as well. And that really, was something that I made a big deal about early on in his life. And that's another modeling thing, where if they see you enjoying reading, you don't have to talk about it. They will know that it's a good thing. But when the teachers will do it, the children are so overwhelmed with enthusiasm for the story. They will often just be like, the hands are up. They're jumping up out of their seat. They're so excited. They want to share something that they had about that. They read this book. We want to get them in the habit of like holding off a little bit to be able to listen to the whole story. Because every time they want to share, of course, every other friend wants to share. And that's reality. But it's also important to get through the story so everyone can enjoy and hear it and have questions at the end, which the teachers inevitably will coach them on that. But I think that it's profoundly important that they can sit and listen like that without interrupting. And if you have a child that really is struggling, that's something for them to work on, because they have to get kind of into that habit. Now, after everybody's completely in panic mode, feeling like, I've got a month left, what am I going to do all this stuff? Don't panic. This is a really exciting time in all of your lives. I still have the most delightful memories of my son's kindergarten teacher, who was the sweetest, calmest, loveliest woman. And he, I will never forget her. She was like his first, academic motivator, whatever you want to call it. And it was delightful. So I hope that you all have similar positive experiences with your children's kindergarten teacher, because they'll last you a long time. Here it is, the big day. I don't know. I know all districts tend to be a little different. I think around here, most of our kids will start to a slight degree before Labor Day. which I think is just terrible, but that's okay. It gives everybody shopping time and me a little more pushed early on to July and August. But, be positive, give your child a smile and hug, tell her you love her or him, and wave goodbye. And be supportive. This is a big adjustment, and it's going to take some time. It's not an overnight process. It's not something that they're going to come home and have it all nailed down, but so much of how it goes, and that's why we're having this conversation today, but so much of how the day goes, the experience goes, their entry into formal education, depends on how they start this year off. And I think that you want to do the most you can to make sure that they approach it in a positive way by doing what you're going to do. This is another one of the saddest things I've seen in a preschool setting or kindergarten setting, or even older, is when you see a backpack or like the going home folder, come back to school full, like no one even looked at it. And I think to myself, if you could see from the other end, pedal back a little bit, because I do see it. When you see the children work on something, draw something, make something, write something, whatever it is, and they are so excited to show their parents, and they say it, I want to save this for my mom. I'm going to give this to my dad. I'm going to let my mom hang this in her office. They are so excited. And we always have their cubby, and this is where they put it. And the teacher makes sure that it all goes home at the end of the day. And the children carry it in their backpacks like so sacred and special. And to see that stuff come back, having not even been opened, is heartbreaking to me. Because I know from the end that I saw in school how excited the children were to share that with their parents or their family or their adults. And to see it not even being acknowledged by being taken out, it's kind of sad. And it may not look like much to you, but it was a lot of important things for them and work. And they did it for you, I think it's really important, and it may not happen at a certain time, like depending on what your family circumstances are and when your children get home. I know not all programs are full day. Children often will go to aftercare. There's going to be a variety of after school time that will be different for each family. But I think it's really important take 5 or 10 minutes each evening, whether it's after dinner when things kind of calm down, maybe before they take a bath, make it a ritual, because once you make it a routine, it will stick forever with them. And look at their stuff, talk to your child about their day. Ask them what the most fun thing they did in school was, ask them what was the hardest thing, because there's going to be a lot of new skills they're learning. And it's very important for them to be recognized by you that this is hard and you understand, look at their papers, look at their drawings, look at the scribbly stuff, because they worked hard to do that for you. And then maybe you might have a special box or a place where it goes at home. Maybe you pick a special thing each week to put on the fridge. They just are so happy. I get more pictures in my travels to preschools. I love it. And I always tell them, I don't have a child anymore that's little and makes me drawings in preschool. I love taking them home, and I put them on my refrigerator, and they are so thrilled. And then of course they all want to give me pictures of my fridge, and I have to tell them my refrigerator is not quite that big, but I take the pictures no matter what, no matter if they stay in my car, no matter if they go in the trash, whatever. I never let on to that for a child. I let them think that it's special to me. But in your case, you're going to be in your house with your children, with your refrigerator, and you're going to want to, let them see that those things matter to you. Years ago, and I don't know if they have such things now, but I had, because I loved them, bought these picture frames. They were really nice, like nice, attractive, sturdy looking picture frames. But they had, instead of having glass, it was acrylic, but they were only attached on 3 sides behind the frame. So the top of the frame, the acrylic at the molding level was you were able to, it was like a pocket. You could put pictures in the frame and you could take them out. They weren't permanent. And we used to do that with special, what were the special, what was the special pieces of art that he made that were going to go into the frame that would go in his room. And I can't tell you how thrilled he was with that. And he still has them. We changed the color, made it black when he thought that was all cool. And he puts things in there in his room. And I think that was a really good habit to start then. And it puts value to what they've done. And like I said, when I see children's backpacks and folders come back to school without even being checked or emptied, that says another thing too, that their work is not valuable. And it is. It's especially hard for them at this stage. The slightest little thing could, be very much an effort for them. And you want to recognize that, because it also reinforces that. The more they do that you recognize, that's just going to propel them on to more effort. And that's what we want with children in school. We want them to take the time. We want them to make the effort. And these are all sort of little, very early stepping stones that you can do to show them that these efforts are important and rewarded. My favorite, read, because you will get inundated with things from your child, especially the first week of school. There will be all kinds of things, school routines, dates, how the process is for snow days, when the holiday, this is, you start the school year and then there's inevitably like a bunch of holidays right in a row that parents might not be aware of that are school days off. You want to check all those. This would be a good time to get yourselves a calendar that you put up on the fridge or somewhere accessible in your kitchen or area where you're going to be, and make those things, put them on the calendar quickly. Because if you don't, you're going to end up with a pile of papers listing very important dates that you haven't transferred to a calendar and you don't, won't know them. It's kind of a, or special day, yellow day or special hat day or whatever it is. You don't want your child to be the one that doesn't have what they're supposed to have. So a lot of schools will do like a letter day, and have children bringing things in that start with that letter. You want to make, that's very upsetting to kids when they don't have what they need. And at this age, it's for you to support that. So you want to make sure you do that, and always check the backpack. Like I just said, that's profoundly important, because the school can send it home with you're not picking up anymore. Like in preschool, you would be picking your child up from school usually. You would have some exchange with the teacher daily, or at least several times a week, and you don't usually have that in kindergarten. So you really have to rely on their system and how they communicate to you, and be responsive to that, because I'm sure they're going to give you a way to communicate with them, a way to respond to different things. But it's really important that you check that out. I would even I had something early on. It was like an acrylic pocket kind of thing that I put on the garage door inside. So I would always remember to come through the garage and put this stuff in there with, class lists, birthdays, procedures for things. Just, over the years, you get a lot of stuff that every grade level that you need to attend to. And it's good to have a special place for that. If you have a couple of children, maybe make it a couple pockets, but that was always a really helpful thing. But really, check comes home. Don't send it back to school again. With COVID, if nothing, we've gotten used to new changes and procedures. Our kids are very resilient and very adaptable, and they will be aware of things probably even before you are. Hand washing and using hand sanitizer is not new to them at all. Wearing masks is not new to them at all. I think for the most part, it would appear that the school districts are starting back normally. But one thing we know about COVID is it changed as much as it stayed the same. Now we have monkeypox, so who knows? But your schools are going to advise you about all these protocols. Stay tuned, because that's really important for you to know as well, whether it's, a virus that's going around like a flu, where children need to know hand, foot, and mouth. There's lots of nasty things out there that your kids will get in school that you want to make sure you're aware of. So however they're going to communicate that to you, stay tuned for that. It's very important. These are just some of the things about, how you feel. I know there's a lot of controversy sometimes in certain schools about, my child doesn't have to wear a mask and things. Handle it calmly, and your child will too, because it's inevitably, it's not the child that's getting upset about, it's the parent. If nothing, we've learned to handle challenges in the past couple of years, and they've been challenging times. How we approach it will determine how we get through it. And I think if any of you've experienced this with your own children and your own, teachers that have had their own classrooms, you know what this is like. And the way that you handle it lets the child know that it's an okay thing to handle. And I think that if you present kind of united, present in agreement, present calm, your children will respond accordingly. And this is, however we have to get through it, whether we have to get through it, again, we will. One of my absolute favorite quotes, and it's once again my favorite topic of reading. The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more things that you learn, the more places you'll go. By our favorite Dr. Seuss, and who's exactly right. You know, I've read that in adult quotes. It's like, you know, I've been to great places and explored cities and done all these things, and I've blah, 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 because I read. And it's true. You know, there's probably not a single thing you can do for your child more valuable for them than read to them. My personal feeling is that if children learn to read or get exposed to books only when it's a school thing, like a work thing, homework thing, chore, they will treat reading like a chore. And if you expose them to books early in their life, you know, it will be something that they enjoy. You know, take them to the library, let them choose books for themselves, make it a habit, make it a policy, let them see you read. You know, we're all about our screens, but let them see you read a book, let them see you read a Kindle, let them see you read, because that will transfer to them more than anything will. When we talked earlier tonight about special, you know, reading back to school books, there are some absolutely phenomenal, adorable books about kindergarten. They just seem to become more and more every year. And I would encourage you to go to the library and, you know, take a stack out and let your child pick a special book each night. And you can do the whole book process. Like, what do you think it's about? What do you think is going to happen? They talk about, you know, different experiences that children have. I love the Jacqueline Woodson, The Day You Begin, because this is so true. This is such a absolute important beginning. Pete the Cat, another big character now that I didn't experience early on in my life with my son, but, you know, apparently he's all that. And his Rockin' in His School Shoes, I have read. It is a great book. Peppa's another favorite. Peppa's School Day, you know, really, really great books. And once again, you're creating a little bit of a tradition. You're creating a little bit of a routine. And, you know, the toughest little kids still love that. And I'll tell you a funny story. My son was in the habit, like, he would eat breakfast and watch his, like, whatever morning show was, you know, Sesame or whatever he was into in the mornings. And we used like a little snack tray there for his juice and his plate or whatever. Pretty indulgent, I will admit. I only have one child. He's a boy, so what can I tell you? But when he started kindergarten, I took a piece of like white, like it's just a roll paper, you know, craft paper, and I taped it onto the tray, and I put like happy first day of kindergarten, and I would draw like a school bus on it and, you know, silly things. Well, let me tell you that I almost think he expected that in college. And if my memory serves me right, I probably did it like when he was first going, before he was actually in residence there. But he just moved at 25 years old. He moved to Atlanta in May, and actually like was razzing me the night before that, you know, was I going to do him like a first day of, you know, in Atlanta? Was I going to do something on a tray like that? And I was like, are you kidding me, Andrew? Really? Like at his age? But he went upstairs and I thought about it. I thought, you know, he probably brought that up for a reason. And I'm very sure it would not have been an issue if I didn't do it. But I did it. You know, what do I have to lose? He's not going to, this is it. He's moved. You know, this is not going to be something we're going to do regularly. And I just felt that, you know, for all those years, that was like a 20-year habit, give or take, that he really, and I know I did it through high school, like, you know, I know I did because he was still home. And he would probably roll his eyes and he wouldn't want any of his friends to see it. And he would be too cool, but it mattered to him. And those rituals that you start now, school related ones, are so important. And the book reading could be just one part of it that's easy for you to do. So please indulge this time with your children, make it fun for them, get a great couple of books, and have a wonderful time. This is the most important part. Enjoy it. It's a very special time for both of you. And it only is going to happen once per child, hopefully. So enjoy it. The end. So let's see if we have some questions about any of this. Ladies?
We do not have any questions currently in the question and answer box, but if you do
Okay.
have some, please feel free to type them in there and we will get them answered.
You know, I know a lot depends on different districts. Like each one kind of does things a little differently. So I realize that and I appreciate that. So we can't be too specific because we all have different processes for our districts. But I really, you know, welcome your questions because this is kind of a big deal, you know? Do any of the other panelists have any questions or comments or thoughts?
Patty, I can say that I thought it was really, really great information. I have 3 young ones at home.
Who am I talking to, Shannon?
Shannon.
Oh my gosh, 3, your child.
I have an 11-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 7-year-old, and we frequent the library all the time. And even now in the summertime, like my family makes fun of me because I'm very big with their schedule. I try and stick with their schedule and things like that.
Absolutely.
And in the summer now, before they're allowed to watch TV or go on any electronics or anything, they have to read for 30 minutes.
Yay,
And
Shannon!
yeah, and then they can go on and play. But yeah, it's great information. I love it.
Thank you. I'll tell you, I sincerely believe this isn't like rhetoric, you know? I did this job and I know how hard it is, but I will tell you, like what you said about a routine. Do any of you, like with any of you with children, you know, and this, or if you've taught and you're substituting, or if you've taught and you've changed the routine one day, the hands will go up. No, we don't do that. We do this first and then we do that. They know they will adapt to a routine so quickly and they will embrace it. It is not punishment. It is not rigid. It's not restrictive. It makes them safe and it gives them a place to know what's happening in their life. And that's the best thing you can do for your child. And it's just as important to do in the summer as it is throughout the school year. You know, you don't want routine to be part of school and a punishment. You want it to be part of life. And the library, to me, is the best kept secret in Bucks County because they are phenomenal places. I mean, I can't tell you, like, we used to go to a little tiny one up by me, but they had like a great little kids corner. But I've been to that one down on New Falls Road. That is like a feast of whatever for me. Like I can't even leave there. I would meet with a child there, but I'd leave there with $12 just because I couldn't resist. And, you know, the programs that they offer, my son used to go to those summer reading programs. And one year he and my niece did a science program that was absolutely incredible. And he still has his Harry Potter book that he won in some kind of like contest. But it really, you know, it can be an expensive proposition if you're going to hit Barnes and Noble, but you don't have to. You know, and the best thing I see is when I go to a house and I see books like a library book stack, knowing that they have to go back and knowing that they're treasured. That's really important stuff, you know. But the books that I found that are on here are real classics. I'm sure there's a dozen more that have, you know, popped up since, but they're wonderful books.